So on my main channel, there's a lot of hockey. Talk a lot of hockey all the time. And power rankings are kind of an obsession for hockey fans. And yet, power rankings, I'm pretty sure, are most important and most odd when it comes to football. And here's why. There have been power rankings in the National Football League the whole offseason. Something you don't see in other sports, where we're trying to figure out, okay, who's the best and who's the worst. And I think the 16-game season makes a big difference. Which is why, after one game, we're going to talk about power rankings. We're going to talk about who the best is and who the worst is coming out of week one. And it's really tough. So I went through like preseason predictions and all this stuff to try to get it figured out as to who was supposed to be where this coming season. This season that started this past weekend. And the one thing that I can find is there seems to be some consensus when it comes to number 32. See, you can look through and there's all the scores. Oh, that one stands out, 59-10. And then there were rumors that there were members of the Miami Dolphins that after the game wanted to get traded. That they messaged their agents, hey, you can get me out of here. How do you lose 59-10? It's just ridiculous. And then if you're a Ravens fan, you're left going, great, we won the game, but they're really bad. So they're awful, which means that you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, which sucks. Number 31, the Buccaneers. Now, I'm old enough to remember when Tampa Bay had the old logo and they were just bad. They were bad all the time. And the only season where they looked good was when the NFL sent all the players home and used replacements. That was the only year that they were good when I was really, really, really into football before I had to make up my mind and go with mainly hockey. I was into NFL football, baseball, and hockey. Tampa Bay, they kind of became a team that I adopted at that point. Now, if I was coming into football right now, they might be there too. Miami as well, but Miami, we're looking at already talk about an 0-16 season for the Miami Dolphins. They're miserable. Number 30. I have the Cardinals, which is unfair since they didn't lose. However, they didn't win either. 27-27 tie. Kind of a miserable way to end a game. How do you react as a football fan when a game ends in a tie? You kind of, hey, that's it. That's it. It's done. They had a whole 15-minute overtime and nothing. All right, nothing happened. So, yeah, they're in 30th. 29th place. And, again, I'm just looking at the scores here. Losing 35-17. It's the Giants. If you're a fan of football right now in New York, it's not a fantastic time to be a football fan in New York. The Jets, it's kind of a given that they're not going to be great. And I'm not trying to throw any shade at the Jets. It's just, historically, that's kind of how it's worked out. The Giants, on the other hand, you'll have those seasons where things look pretty darn good. Their quarterbacking's doing really, really well. Eli Manning looks fantastic. And even when Eli Manning was sort of kind of mediocre, the rest of the team would bail him out at times. Rough season looks to be ahead for the New York Giants. Again, it's week one. It's so weird that we make these statements. But I'm seeing them everywhere, so I'm like, all right, well, I can give that a shot and do my own power rankings. Then we'll go week to week and see how it works out. 27, I have the Redskins, who lost on the road to the Philadelphia Eagles 32-27. It's a close game. So I don't know how bad Washington really is, and I don't know if this is a case of Washington not being better than 28th, or maybe Philadelphia's being mildly overrated. I don't know. But Philadelphia is not in the bottom row because, well, they won. And that was the dividing line, too, that I wanted to do for this, was that if you won week one, you should be in the top 16. But I looked around and looked at all the standings and all the rankings, and there's only one that I'm kind of way off where everybody else is with this team. Number 27, involved in the tie game, and again, a tie game in football. The Lions. The Lions were good for 2 years. Was it 2 years the Lions were pretty good, and then it just sort of falls apart? And you kind of feel like, well, yeah, that's sort of how the Lions work. Hey, I live in BC. We got the BC Lions right there with you. So that's sort of kind of how the Detroit Lions go as it stands. 26. And again, I'm just looking to grab the scores on all of these. 26 is, after losing at home 40-26, the Jaguars. But again, the question that I ask myself with the Jaguars is, now, the Jaguars do have a major issue here, in that Nick Foles is out. And without Nick Foles, I think that hurts him. Now, Minshew went in as the replacement, passed for 275 yards, got 2 TDs and an interception. So his numbers overall, not bad, considering. Okay, you're in. Nick Foles is out. Not saying Nick Foles is an all-world quarterback either, because he's not, but it does hurt Jacksonville's chances further by having Nick Foles out. We'll see how the new kid does for them, right? I say kid. I always say kid. At my age, I'm allowed, because they're all younger than me, so they're all kids. Number 25. I'm going to grab the score off this one last night. And honestly, if we were basing this on the first half of football, I would have Denver far lower than 25. They ended up having a good second half, but my God, they were miserable in the first half. That was a Now, this is where, again, when you're after week 1, it gets tricky. Did they have a miserable first half, or did the Raiders have a great first half? The answer is yes. Number 24. I'm kind of surprised at how lowly rated these guys are coming into the season, but that's fine, because the Bengals have to prove themselves. And losing on the road to Seattle 21-20. Moral victory, right? Moral victory? Does that count for anything? No, it doesn't really count for anything, does it? Number 23. And remember when the Falcons, not too many years ago, were knocking on the door and it looked like they had Samuel L. Jackson cut a promo of these guys. They almost got the job done, and now they're going to finish what they started. No. They lose 28-12 on the road against the Vikings. So, good showing for the Vikings, bad showing for the Falcons, and overall, you end up with a result that's kind of sort of predictable from week 1. Number 22. I've talked about it. The Browns lost 43-13 at home against Tennessee. And Tennessee fans didn't like me making excuses for Cleveland. Saying that they took 182 yards in penalties isn't an excuse. It's just reality. When your team isn't playing very well, when you keep backing the ball up constantly with 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, that's a recipe for disaster. Absolute, complete, and total disaster. So everything that could go wrong went wrong for Cleveland, and I'm not sure that we won't see them in the bottom row next week when I do this. Because, again, this is sort of a trial run, and then we'll see where things are next week. Number 21. I mentioned New York, right? Yeah. The Bills. Didn't they have like 4 interceptions or 4 turnovers, and they won the game? It's against the Jets. So that's kind of how that works. Allen passed for 254 yards for the Bills. 1 TD, 2 interceptions. And yeah, so that's how that works. Allen also had a rushing TD. So, that's a long night. And then the fact that they were ahead 16-3 going into that fourth quarter, and then Buffalo gets 14 points. That's a problem. Buffalo's a team you should beat in your home opener. I'm not trying to throw any shade at Buffalo. Just if the New York Jets are going to do anything this year, they'd have to win that game. To which Jets fans watching this are like, we're not doing anything this year. Number 20. The 24-16 win for the Raiders last night, I think what was impressive was the fan support is amazing. Considering this team is moving to Las Vegas, it is amazing the amount of support they were getting and how loud that crowd was last night. I wanted to put the Raiders higher than this. Now, I say that as somebody who I don't like the Raiders. Never cheered for the Raiders. Just throwing that out there. Never, ever, not once. Not by accident. But their dominance in that first half should have put them up into this range. But then it's undercut by the comeback by Denver. So because that score ends up being a little bit closer by the end of it, I'm going to go ahead and have the Raiders at 20, and I really think this team could do some damage. If they can continue to feed on their anger at Antonio Brown, this team absolutely could be a danger for, I'll say wild card. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but I'll say danger for a wild card. This team last night, at least in the first half, played like they had something to play for and that they were defiant. So with John Gruden, you just never know. You just never know. Number 19, coming off of a win as well, San Francisco. They win 31-17, but it's over the Bucs. So now San Francisco is going to have to get wins against teams that are better than that, but a win is a win. San Francisco is 1-0. Congratulations to them. I'm old enough to remember the Montana and Steve Young years, and someday San Francisco will get back to, if not playoffs, they'll get some. They will get back to something. It has to happen. Such a proud tradition. Number 18, the luckless Indianapolis Colts. I promise that's the only time I'm going to make a luck joke about the Indianapolis Colts. Promise. They lose in overtime against San Diego. Gutsy performance. Or San Diego. See, I did it. See, look, Chargers. L.A. The L.A. Chargers. It's going to take me years to stop calling them San Diego Chargers. Just throwing that out there. So, good game for Indianapolis. They lose on the road. For the Chargers, they eke one out. It makes me a little bit nervous as a Chargers fan, but I think Indianapolis is going to surprise some people. If anybody thinks they're just going to roll over without Andrew Luck, I think they're going to be surprised at how they do. As mentioned, Buffalo, they're 1-0. They can't afford to play that way against anybody else for the rest of the season or they'll lose. But coming out 1-0 out of a game that they may look back on and go, gee, we didn't play particularly well to win it, but we came back and won it when it mattered, that can be an important victory. So when you're looking for underdogs that may end up coming out and at least getting a wild card spot, that's the kind of story you're looking for. Again, it's only a 16-game season. Number 16. And honestly, I think I've got these guys lower than anybody else. So the Steelers came out this week, and they were awful. And it's not just that the Steelers were bad. Their play calling had me scratching my head throughout that game. Where it's like, okay, so we're down. You guys are down 2 touchdowns. You're going to throw in that situation? All right. You're running? Okay, all right. You should probably take a timeout. No, you're not going to take? All right. Okay, fine. So there were a lot of moments during that game that I was left kind of scratching my head. And I understand there's nothing that Pittsburgh could have done to win the game, but there was plenty that I saw Pittsburgh doing to lose it. So did they make New England look better than they are? Did the Antonio Brown thing affect players on the team? I don't think so, but who knows, right? Number 15. The Chicago Bears lose 10-3 in the first game of the year. Now, you can look at this and say it's a Thursday night game and it's the first game of the year and they're having trouble getting started. Or you can look at it like I do through cynical eyes and say, oh, the Bears are having trouble scoring touchdowns? That's, if you look over the last 35 years, there have been some seasons where they can, but yeah, they do have their struggles scoring touchdowns. And I would not be surprised to see the Bears as a surprise team to just have a 6-10 or 7-9 season. Big things are still kind of expected from them by some, but that's been tempered by that Week 1 result. Again, we don't want to overreact to Week 1, but you can't discount it either. At number 14, and coming off of what was a very strong game, the Panthers lose at home 30-27. Now, they lose to the Rams. The Rams are a contender. Rams could very well end up winning the Super Bowl this year, as long as Tom Brady allows it. But they still lose at home. And they lose that home opener. And it hurts. So this is where, like, when I see like where the Raiders are and where the Panthers are, I'm okay with it because it's only Week 1. But at the same time, it's one of those things that with football, I will get into this as we go week by week by week. But I wish that we were in a situation where I would have the top 16, all 16 teams that won, bottom 16, all 16 teams that lose. We'll see if things turn around. Number 14. And if you missed this game, if you missed the last minute of this game, you missed one of the best games of the year. The Texans, I should say, Houston Texans lose 30-28. That game was fantastic. The New Orleans Saints and Houston Texans played an absolutely fantastic, kind of sort of perfect football game. And if you missed it, you missed a beauty. Absolute beauty. I like the Texans. I know they lose the game. Last year, the Texans had a rough start. They ended up managing to have a comeback at the end. I'm really hoping this isn't a sign of things to come. That we're not going to be talking about the Texans being like 0-4 or 1-3 and going, gee, but they only lose by 3 or less points, so they're close, and then they have to kill themselves to make the playoffs the rest of the way. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. I'd like to see something good happen for the Texans this year. Number 12, having won in overtime at home, the LA Chargers. Are they a playoff team? Likely. Do I have any faith that the team that I've cheered for 30 plus years is going to win a Super Bowl? No, none. I have zero. Absolutely none. And it's nothing against them, and I love Phillip Rivers. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. No, I don't have any faith that they'll do it. Number 11, Tennessee. The Tennessee Titans showed something against Cleveland. Yes, Cleveland took those penalties, and they took advantage. The interceptions that were thrown late, they took advantage of those, turned them into points. If Tennessee can manage to get on a bit of a roll here, absolutely. That division is vulnerable. They can end up being the top team in that division. So we'll see if the Titans can maintain that momentum into week 2. Number 10, Green Bay. Boring week 1 for them. Boring game between them and the Bears. And I know I've had this argument with football fans before. They're like, it's not boring, it's good defensive football. Not in week 1. Week 1, you want to see touchdowns and points and comebacks and like Houston and New Orleans. But Green Bay's there. They're in the top 10, and we'll see if they can maintain it. Never count out Aaron Rodgers. We learned this week, never count out old quarterbacks. Number 9. So how good are Baltimore? And how bad are the Miami Dolphins? Can Baltimore maintain this? Baltimore has to be licking their chops a little bit because Pittsburgh takes a step back. Cincinnati doesn't look like they're going to be a playoff team either. Baltimore could go on a nice little run here. And they're a team that come playoff time, they've always had good defense. Always. This is a team that will always be a good defensive team. It's just one of those things. One thing that I love about the NFL is teams having identities. Teams like Baltimore and Chicago being known for being really tough defensive teams. And that's something I really, really like, is that these organizations continue that year through year through year. Number 8. The win that Seattle gets, not a huge one, and certainly not a win that you look at and you say, well, Seattle's a contender, but they get the win. So while Seattle is not where they were when they were in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots not too long ago, they are showing that they could still be a team to watch for in that division and could potentially still be a playoff team. I still think 9-7, 10-6, I could see it for them. Coming off of their win, how good are the Vikings? So in hockey, we saw the St. Louis Blues finally win a Stanley Cup. Can we get the Vikings a Super Bowl, please? The Vikings, it's a sad story, and even though I'm not really a Vikings fan, can this team finally come through and get that win in the playoffs and get a Super Bowl victory? That would be really nice to see. Number 6, the Eagles. And the Eagles, I honestly, of the teams that I have higher up in this countdown, I would not be surprised to see the Eagles drop. That's just my gut instinct. We'll see whether or not it proves to be true. But I do think the Eagles may end up falling, down to about 10 as soon as next week. Just one of those things that I look at and I think, that could very well end up happening soon. Number 5, one of those old quarterbacks, Drew Brees. I have always been a huge Drew Brees fan. If I was going to talk about my favorite quarterbacks of all time, Drew Brees would have to be, I would think, top 3. Steve Young would be in that top 3 as well, even though, as a Rams fan at the time, I got sick of watching the Niners beat the Rams, but Steve Young was fantastic. But Drew Brees showed last night, age is just a number, and he gets himself a couple of passing touchdowns. I was kind of hoping for 3 so that he and Tom Brady would be getting mentioned in the same sentence. It's going to happen anyways. Drew Brees, basically, I just want to keep playing. Till my body falls apart, I'm going to keep playing. Respect that, love that, and I'm glad he ended up getting a ring in New Orleans because he wouldn't have got one in San Diego or now L.A. Number 4. I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, and people know this. People who know me know this, and it's weird because I love the Dallas Stars in hockey. Not a Dallas Cowboys fan, never been. And Dallas, I can put the phone away. I don't really need to look at the scores now. Dallas has a really, really good result in week 1. Are they that good? Dak Prescott will tell you he is. And he should. This Dallas Cowboys team is starting to resemble old Cowboys teams that won Super Bowls. So we'll see whether or not they get back to that level. But the Cowboys, I talked about teams with identities. The Cowboys, when they've been successful, they've been really well-rounded teams that can run and pass the football. So as long as they have that identity again, they're going to be tough to beat, especially come playoff time. Number 3, Kansas City. And there's a lot of, I've been seeing a lot of fuss about the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe this is the year, and can they do it? Is this going to be the team to do it? And the furthest I can go with that is maybe. I say maybe because there's one team that is this lumbering giant that looks like they're just never going to stop, ever. The dominance they've shown continues. Number 2, the Rams. The Rams, of course, avoid a loss in that first week, and they had a pretty good game against Carolina, and we'll see how they do in week 2, which means number 1. I've seen, I looked at some other rankings before doing this video, and everybody has New England at 1. Can anybody stop New England? They destroyed Pittsburgh 33-3. Antonio Brown didn't play. They don't need Antonio Brown. Now, Sid Sixero on Tim and Sid yesterday is calling it. He thinks Antonio Brown has gone off the New England Patriots by week 8. And I don't necessarily disagree with him, and I'll say why. Antonio Brown records his coach without his knowledge. Okay, and then he posts the clip online. He posts a clip of himself running around in his backyard, yelling and hooping and hollering that he's free. But somebody had a camera on him, so I have a funny feeling that was staged. Just suspicious on that. I don't think Belichick's going to put up with any crap. And I think that with New England not really needing him, we may be in a situation where Brown may not last very long. They may not last very long with the Patriots. I think they're rolling the dice. If it works out, great, and if it doesn't, then yeah, I kind of agree that he may find his way out of town. But New England is scary impressive, and Tom Brady just doesn't slow down. Tom Brady is getting better with age, if that's possible. He seems to be. And we'll find out as this season goes along, can these guys maintain that number 1 spot? Because again, I could talk about contenders right up until I'll just say the Eagles. I'll say until the Eagles, right? So these top 6, I'll say, yeah, you can call these 6 legit contenders right now. But because of who's at number 1, how seriously do we take any of them? So there you go, my first ever NFL Power Rankings. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It's way too early in the year for this, but it's something everybody eats it up, and it's fun to do. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and if you subscribe to this channel, you're like, hey, what's with all the football? Don't worry, I'm going to do a Power Rankings. I think I can do this every week, and that'll be fine. And there's still some other TV stuff for me to report on. There's music stuff to report on, all kinds of stuff. and it all gets thrown on this channel because if it's not hockey, it ends up here. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.